My name is David. I'm 34 years old, and I thought I knew what betrayal looked like until it came from the two people I trusted most in this world. My wife Sarah is 31, and my sister Emma just turned 29 last month. I say is and just turned, like they're still part of my life. But they're not. Not anymore. Not after what they did to me. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and the conversation stops? When everyone suddenly finds their phones fascinating and won't meet your eyes? I lived with that feeling for 8 months without understanding why. 8 months of walking through my own life like a ghost, sensing something was wrong but being told I was paranoid, oversensitive, imagining things. I should have trusted my gut from the beginning. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember because Sarah had made pancakes, which she never did on weekdays. She was humming while she cooked, moving around our kitchen with this lightness I hadn't seen in months. She looked beautiful, standing there in her blue silk pajamas, her dark hair catching the morning light streaming through our window. "You seem happy today," I said, wrapping my arms around her waist from behind. She stiffened for just a second before relaxing into me. "Can a wife be happy to make breakfast for her husband?" But there was something in her voice, something I couldn't name then, but understand now. Guilt has a sound to it, a particular pitch that cuts through even the sweetest words. I kissed her neck and grabbed my coffee. "I'll be late tonight. Johnson Industries meeting ran long yesterday, so we're picking it up again at 5. "Oh!" She turned around, and for a split second, I saw something flash across her face. Relief? "That's fine. Emma and I were going to grab dinner anyway." Emma, my little sister who'd moved to our city 6 months earlier after her divorce. The sister I'd helped find an apartment, co-signed her lease, lent money for furniture. The sister who'd become Sarah's best friend faster than seemed natural. But I was happy about it then. I thought it was beautiful, how they'd bonded. I was an idiot. That night, I finished the meeting earlier than expected and decided to surprise Sarah at whatever restaurant she and Emma had chosen. I called her phone 3 times, no answer. I tried Emma's phone, straight to voicemail. I drove home thinking maybe they decided to stay in. Maybe they were having a sister-in-law bonding night on our couch with wine and romantic comedies. When I pulled into our driveway at 8:15, the house was dark. Sarah's car was gone. I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, trying to shake off this creeping feeling that something was wrong. When she finally came home at 10:40, her hair was mussed and her lipstick was gone. "How was dinner?" I asked. "Good, really good. We went to that new Italian place downtown." She wouldn't look at me while she talked, busying herself with hanging up her purse, taking off her shoes. "Which one?" Antonio's. You know, the one with the red awning." I knew every restaurant in our city. There was no Antonio's with a red awning. That's when the knot in my stomach started forming. That's when I began paying attention to things I'd been ignoring for months. The way Sarah's phone was always face down now. The way she'd started taking calls in the other room. The way she'd suddenly developed opinions about things she'd never cared about before. Craft beer, hiking trails, foreign films. The way she'd smile at her phone while texting. The kind of smile she used to give me. And Emma, sweet, heartbroken Emma, who'd cried on my shoulder about her cheating ex-husband. Emma who'd sworn she'd never keep secrets from family, who'd said blood was thicker than water. Emma who'd started avoiding my eyes during family dinners. 3 weeks after the Italian restaurant lie, I saw them together. I'd left work early with a migraine and decided to pick up lunch from the deli near Emma's apartment building. I thought maybe I'd surprise my sister, see if she wanted company. As I parked across the street, I saw Sarah's silver Honda in the visitor parking lot. That was odd. Sarah had said she was working late that day, covering for her coworker who was out sick. I sat in my car, migraine forgotten, watching the entrance to Emma's building. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Sarah and Emma walked out together. They were laughing about something, Emma's hand on Sarah's arm, both of them looking around nervously before getting into Sarah's car. I followed them. They drove to a coffee shop on the other side of town. Through the window, I watched them sit across from each other in a corner booth, heads close together, talking intensely. Emma kept glancing at the door. Sarah kept checking her phone. This wasn't sister-in-law bonding. This was planning. I drove home and called in sick for the rest of the week. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what was happening to my life. That weekend, Sarah suggested we have dinner with Emma. She seems lonely, Sarah said. I think she could use some family time. The three of us sat around our dining room table, the same table where Sarah and I had eaten our first meal as newlyweds 3 years earlier. Emma had brought wine, expensive wine, which was strange because she'd been complaining about money for months. This is nice, Sarah said, raising her glass. The three of us together. Emma smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. To family? They toasted. I didn't. David. Sarah looked at me with concern that felt rehearsed. Everything okay? Fine. Just tired. But I was watching them, the way Emma kept glancing at Sarah, the way Sarah kept touching her wedding ring, spinning it around her finger like she was trying to remind herself it was there. The way they both seemed to be acting in a play I wasn't part of. After Emma left, Sarah and I did the dishes in silence. When we went to bed, she turned away from me, claiming exhaustion. I lay awake, listening to her breathe, wondering when my wife had become a stranger. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Webb, and he looked exactly like what you'd expect a private investigator to look like. Mid-50s, graying hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. His office smelled like coffee and disappointment. How long have you been married? He asked. 3 years. Together for 5. Any kids? No. We've been trying, but I couldn't finish that sentence. The trying had stopped months ago, around the same time Sarah had started acting strange. What makes you think your wife is having an affair? I told him about the lies, the secretive behavior, the way she'd started treating me like a roommate instead of a husband. I told him about seeing her with Emma, about the expensive wine, about the feeling that everyone around me was performing in a show I didn't have the script for. Marcus nodded like he'd heard this story 1,000 times before. And you want to know if your sister is involved? I want to know the truth. The truth costs money, and once you know it, you can't unknow it. I wrote him a check for $5,000. 3 days later, Marcus called me at work. We need to meet. His voice told me everything I needed to know, but I wasn't prepared for how much worse it was than I'd imagined. We met at a diner downtown. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the table like he was passing along state secrets. Your wife has been having an affair for 4 months, he said without preamble. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, 2 to 5 p.m., sometimes Saturdays. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. Photographs, Sarah walking into a hotel. Sarah in a restaurant, sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. Sarah kissing that same man in a parking lot. Who is he? James Morrison, 28 years old. Works at the marketing firm downtown. Divorced. No kids. I stared at the photos, trying to reconcile the woman in them with the woman who'd made me pancakes and promised to love me forever. And my sister? Marcus's expression darkened. That's where this gets complicated. He pulled out more photos. Emma entering the same hotel. Emma having coffee with James Morrison. Emma handing him what looked like a key. Your sister isn't just covering for your wife, Marcus said. She's actively helping coordinate the affair. She books the hotel rooms. She provides alibis. She even met with him twice to give him information about your schedule. The diner spun around me. I felt like I was drowning in air. There's more. More? How could there be more? They've been talking about you? Your sister recorded one of their conversations. Marcus slid a small digital recorder across the table. She sent it to him. I'm not sure why, but my contact at the hotel managed to retrieve it from his phone. With shaking hands, I pressed play. Sarah's voice clear as day. David's so clueless. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I remember how boring he's become. He works, comes home, watches TV, goes to bed. Where's the passion? Where's the excitement? Emma's voice. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. David's my brother, but he's always been too safe, too predictable. Mom used to say he needed someone to push him out of his comfort zone. James pushes me. He makes me feel alive again. And David will never find out as long as we're careful. I'll keep covering for you. What if he gets suspicious? Then I'll convince him he's being paranoid. I'm his sister. He trusts me completely. I turned off the recorder. The betrayal from Sarah was devastating but expected. The betrayal from Emma felt like being hit by a truck I never saw coming. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I drove home in a daze. Sarah was in the kitchen, making dinner like it was any other Tuesday. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, I saw her through different eyes. This woman who'd promised to love me, honor me, be faithful to me, had been methodically destroying our marriage while my own sister helped her do it. How was work? She asked. Fine. I watched her move around our kitchen. This woman who'd been living a double life with surgical precision. How many lies had she told me? How many times had Emma looked me in the eye and lied to protect Sarah's affair? That night, Sarah reached for me in bed. For the first time in months, she wanted to be intimate. I understood now why. Guilt makes people do strange things. She was trying to ease her conscience by playing the loving wife. I couldn't do it. I turned away and pretended to sleep. 2 days later, Emma called to invite us to dinner at her place. Just the three of us again, she said. I'm making that pasta dish you like. I looked at Sarah, who was nodding eagerly. That sounds perfect, Sarah said. We'll be there at 7. I knew what I had to do. At 6:30, I told Sarah I wasn't feeling well. Oh no, she said, but I could see the relief in her eyes. Should I stay home with you? No, go. Don't disappoint Emma. I'll just rest. Sarah kissed my forehead, a gesture that felt like mockery now. I'll be back early. After she left, I called Marcus. I need you to follow them tonight. David, you already have proof. I need you to follow them. An hour later, Marcus called me back. They didn't go to Emma's apartment. They drove to the Hilton downtown. Your sister went up to room 412. 20 minutes later, your wife followed. James Morrison arrived at 8:15. I hung up the phone and sat in my empty house, surrounded by the debris of my marriage, wedding photos on the mantel, Sarah's coffee cup in the sink, the throw pillow she'd bought last month that said, "Home is wherever I'm with you." Everything was a lie. When Sarah came home at 10:30, her hair was perfect and her makeup was fresh. She'd clearly showered somewhere. How was dinner? I asked. Really nice. Emma made too much food, as usual. She kissed my cheek. How are you feeling? Better. But I wasn't better. I was planning. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. Then I called my bank and moved half our savings into a new account. Then I went to work and acted like my world hadn't imploded. That weekend was Sarah's birthday. She wanted to have a small party. Just Emma, a few friends, nothing fancy. We held it in our backyard, the same backyard where we'd talked about installing a swing set for the children we'd planned to have. I watched Sarah and Emma all evening, the way they communicated with glances, the way Emma kept steering conversations away from anything that might lead to questions about Sarah's schedule, the way they'd both perfected the art of lying to my face. Emma gave a toast to my sister-in-law, who's become one of the most important people in my life. Sarah, you've brought so much joy and excitement into our family. David is so lucky to have you. Everyone raised their glasses. I wanted to throw mine across the yard. Later, while Sarah was in the bathroom and our friends were gathered around the fire pit, Emma approached me. You seem quiet tonight, she said. Just tired. You've seemed tired a lot lately. Everything okay with you and Sarah? The concern in her voice was so convincing I almost believed it myself. This was my sister, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd called me crying when her husband cheated on her. The girl who was now orchestrating my wife's affair like a military operation. We're fine, I said. Good. You two are perfect together. I'd hate to see anything come between you. That night, after our friends left and the dishes were done, Sarah and I sat on our couch watching a movie. She curled up against me like she used to when we were dating. Thank you for tonight, she said. For the party. For everything. I know I haven't been the easiest to live with lately. What do you mean? I've been distant, distracted. Work has been stressful, and I know I've been taking it out on you. Work, not the affair she'd been having for 4 months. Not the elaborate deception she'd constructed with my sister's help. It's okay, I said. I love you, David. I know I don't say it enough anymore, but I do. The worst part was that she seemed to mean it. People are complicated. Sarah could love me and betray me at the same time. She could plan to meet her lover and still curl up on our couch afterward, probably convinced she was protecting me from pain. The next Tuesday, I took the day off work. Sarah left for her supposed job at 9 a.m. I followed her. She drove straight to Emma's apartment building. Emma was waiting in the lobby with a small, overnight bag. They hugged like co-conspirators and drove to the Hilton. I sat in the parking lot for an hour, watching people come and go, thinking about the man my wife was with upstairs, James Morrison, 28 years old, divorced, no kids. What did he have that I didn't? What had I failed to give Sarah that she'd gone looking for somewhere else? But that wasn't the right question. The right question was, when had my sister decided I deserved to be lied to? When Sarah came home that afternoon, she looked guilty and satisfied and exhausted all at once. How was work? I asked. Busy, really busy. I wanted to scream. I wanted to show her the photos, play her the recording, ask her how she could look me in the eye and lie so easily, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done to me. That night, Emma called during dinner. Hey, brother, she said, her voice bright and cheerful. How are you? Good. You? Great. Listen, I was thinking of taking Sarah shopping this weekend. Girls' Day, you know. Maybe hit the outlets, get lunch. I looked at Sarah, who was nodding enthusiastically. That sounds nice, I said. Perfect. We'll make a whole day of it. After I hung up, Sarah squeezed my hand. Your sister is amazing. I'm so glad we've gotten close. Close. That was one way to put it. That weekend, I followed them to the outlets. They did go shopping, but only for an hour. Then they drove to a different hotel. Emma went in first, again with an overnight bag. Sarah followed 20 minutes later. I called Marcus. Are you getting this? Every second. James Morrison arrived at 2 p.m. The three of them were coordinating Sarah's affair like a business operation. Emma wasn't just providing alibis. She was actively participating in the logistics. When Sarah came home that evening with shopping bags full of clothes she'd clearly bought as props, I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had been breaking slowly for months. Something deeper. My ability to trust my own judgment. My belief that the people who claimed to love me actually did. Look what I got, Sarah said, showing me a blue dress. Emma has such good taste. It's beautiful. I thought I'd wear it to your company party next month. My company party, where she'd stand next to me, wearing a dress she'd bought to cover up an affair, while my colleagues told me how lucky I was to have such a wonderful wife. That night I made a decision. I was going to confront them, both of them, together. I called Emma the next morning. Would you like to come over for dinner tonight? I thought the three of us could cook together. That sounds wonderful, she said. What should I bring? Just yourself. That evening, Emma arrived with wine and flowers, playing the role of the thoughtful sister-in-law. Sarah had made her specialty, chicken marsala, the dish she'd cooked for our first anniversary. We sat around our dining room table, the three of us, like we had so many times before. But this time, I wasn't the oblivious husband being manipulated by the two women he trusted most. This time, I knew exactly who they were. This is nice, Emma said, raising her wine glass. The three of us together. Yes, I said, it is nice. Having everyone I trust most in one place. Sarah smiled at me, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, young and beautiful and full of promises she'd had no intention of keeping. Actually, there's something I want to discuss with both of you, I said. They exchanged a quick glance. So quick most people would have missed it. What's that? Sarah asked. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table between us. I want to play something for you. I pressed play on the recording Marcus had given me. Sarah's voice filled our dining room. David's so clueless. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I remember how boring he's become. Sarah's face went white. Emma's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine spreading across our white tablecloth like blood. David will never find out as long as we're careful, Emma's voice continued from the phone. Turn it off, Sarah whispered. Then I'll convince him he's being paranoid. I'm his sister. He trusts me completely. I turned off the recording. The silence in our dining room was deafening. Sarah was crying. Emma was staring at the table like she could disappear into it. How long have you known? Sarah asked. 3 weeks. David, Emma started. No. My voice was calm, which surprised me. You don't get to talk, either of you. You've done enough talking. I pulled out the manila envelope and spread the photographs across the table. Sarah and James Morrison kissing. Emma handing him a hotel key, all three of them entering the hotel together. 4 months, I said. 4 months of lies. 4 months of watching my wife pretend to love me while she planned her afternoons with another man. 4 months of my sister looking me in the eye and helping her do it. Sarah was sobbing now, but Emma had gone completely still. I trusted you, I said to Emma. When your husband cheated on you, who did you call? Who helped you move out? Who co-signed your lease because your credit was shot? Who lent you money when you couldn't afford groceries? David, please. And this is how you repay me? By helping my wife destroy our marriage? It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Emma said. How was it supposed to happen? She didn't have an answer for that. I turned to Sarah. And you, my wife, the woman who promised to love me, honor me, be faithful to me. Was any of it real? Our wedding day? Our honeymoon? The night you told me you wanted to start a family? Of course it was real, Sarah said through her tears. I do love you, David. I've always loved you. But not enough to be faithful. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I stood up from the table. You made a choice. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 months, you made a choice. And Emma, you made a choice too. You chose him over me, your brother. Emma finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not remorse, not guilt, defiance. You want to know the truth? Emma said. Fine, yes. I helped Sarah. Yes, I covered for her. And yes, I'd do it again. Sarah stared at her in shock. Why? I asked. Because you weren't making her happy anymore, David. Because she was dying a little bit every day in this marriage. and you were too self-absorbed to notice. So you decided to fix that by helping her cheat? I decided to help my friend find some happiness. Your friend? What about your brother? Emma's laugh was bitter. You've never needed me, David. You've always been the successful one, the responsible one, the one who has everything figured out. You helped me after my divorce because it made you feel good about yourself, not because you actually cared. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you asked about my life without it being connected to some favor you were doing me? I stared at my sister. This woman I'd thought I knew, seeing her clearly for the first time. So you decided to destroy my marriage as revenge for me being a bad brother? I decided to help someone I care about. And what about me? Do I matter at all? For a long moment, Emma didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. Not as much as she does. Sarah was still crying, but she was looking at Emma with something like horror. Emma, don't. No, Sarah. He wants the truth. Here's the truth. David is a good man, but he's boring. He's safe and predictable, and he was making you miserable. James Morrison makes you laugh. He makes you feel alive. He makes you remember who you used to be before you settled for a life that was too small for you. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. And you, Emma continued, looking at me, you've been sleepwalking through your marriage for months. When's the last time you surprised Sarah? When's the last time you planned a real date, not just dinner and a movie? When's the last time you made her feel like she was the most important thing in your world, instead of just another item on your to-do list? So I deserved this? You deserved honesty, but Sarah was too kind to give it to you. Kind, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling 4 months of systematic deception now? Kindness? Emma stood up. I'm not going to apologize for helping someone I love find happiness. And I'm not going to apologize for expecting my wife and my sister to be honest with me. Sarah had stopped crying. She was looking back and forth between Emma and me like she was watching a tennis match. This is insane, Sarah said. Both of you, stop. Emma, you don't speak for me. And David, you're not perfect either. This marriage has been broken for longer than 4 months. So fix it, I said. Talk to me. Go to counseling. Ask for a separation. Don't sneak around behind my back while my sister helps you do it. I tried to talk to you, Sarah said. Remember last year when I said I felt like we were more like roommates than married couples? Remember when I suggested we take that trip to Europe, and you said we couldn't afford it? But then you bought a new TV the next month. I did remember. I'd thought she was going through a phase. Remember when I started taking that pottery class, and you never asked to see anything I made? Remember when I cut my hair, and it took you 3 days to notice? I remembered that too. I'd been distracted by work, by life, by a dozen things that had seemed more important at the time. So you decided to have an affair. I decided to feel wanted again. The three of us stood in our dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of our relationships, and I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Even if Sarah ended the affair, even if Emma apologized, the trust was gone. The foundation was cracked beyond repair. I want both of you to leave, I said. David, Sarah started. Leave, tonight. I'll pack some things for you, Sarah. Emma, I never want to see you again. Emma grabbed her purse. Fine. But you should know something. Sarah didn't plan for this to happen. She didn't wake up one morning and decide to cheat on you. She fell in love, David. She fell in love with someone who sees her, who appreciates her, who makes her feel like she matters. Get out. Emma walked to the door, then turned back. And just so we're clear, I don't regret helping her. I regret that you had to find out this way, but I don't regret helping someone I love be happy. After Emma left, Sarah and I stood in our kitchen, not looking at each other. Do you love him? I asked. Yes. At least she was honest now. Do you love me? Yes, but not the same way. What does that mean? Sarah sat down at our table, looking exhausted. It means I love you like family, like someone I've shared a life with and built memories with and care about deeply. But I'm not in love with you anymore, David. I haven't been for a long time. When did it stop? I don't know. Gradually, little by little. We stopped talking about our dreams. We stopped surprising each other. We stopped trying. So, you found someone who would try. I found someone who made me remember who I used to be. I packed Sarah's things while she called James Morrison to pick her up. I didn't listen to their conversation, but I could hear the tone of her voice, soft and affectionate and alive in a way she hadn't sounded with me in months. When James arrived, I watched from our bedroom window as Sarah walked out of our house carrying 2 suitcases and the overnight bag I'd bought her for our honeymoon. He hugged her like she was something precious he'd been waiting his whole life to hold. Maybe he had been. That night, I sat alone in our living room, drinking the expensive wine Emma had brought for dinner. I thought about my marriage, about the ways it had died so slowly I hadn't noticed. I thought about my sister, about the ways I'd failed her without realizing it. I thought about Sarah, about the woman she'd been when we met, and the woman she'd become in our marriage. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe I had been sleepwalking. Maybe I had taken Sarah for granted, let our marriage become routine, stopped seeing her as a person instead of just my wife. But that didn't excuse 4 months of lies. It didn't excuse the elaborate deception, the fake alibis, the systematic betrayal. And it sure as hell didn't excuse my sister's role in orchestrating it all. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Sarah married James Morrison 8 months after that. I heard about the wedding from my mother, who'd somehow managed to maintain relationships with both Sarah and Emma, despite everything. I moved to a different city, took a job at a smaller firm, started over. I've been in therapy for a year now, trying to understand my role in the breakdown of my marriage, trying to figure out how to trust people again. My therapist says healing isn't linear. Some days I'm angry at Sarah for cheating. Some days I'm angry at Emma for betraying me. Some days I'm angry at myself for being the kind of husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. Most days I'm just sad about the whole thing. Emma sent me a letter 6 months ago. She apologized for the way everything happened, but not for helping Sarah. She said she'd do it again because Sarah is happy now in a way she never was with me. She said she hoped someday I'd understand that love isn't always neat and tidy, that sometimes people have to hurt each other to find their way to happiness. I haven't written back. I don't know if I ever will. Sarah sent me a Christmas card last year, a photo of her and James Morrison on some beach, both of them tanned and smiling and looking like people who'd never had to work for their happiness. On the back, she'd written, "I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. Thank you for letting me go." Letting her go like I'd had a choice. But maybe I did have a choice. Maybe I could have fought for our marriage instead of fighting against the affair. Maybe I could have asked Sarah what she needed instead of assuming I already knew. Maybe I could have been the kind of husband worth staying faithful to. Or maybe some marriages are just meant to end, and some betrayals are just meant to happen. And some people are just meant to discover that the people they trust most in the world are capable of destroying them with surgical precision and calling it love. I don't know anymore. I thought I knew everything about love and loyalty and family, but it turns out I didn't know anything at all. What I do know is this: betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your ability to believe in your own judgment, It makes you question every relationship, every kindness, every moment of trust you've ever experienced. But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. Maybe learning that people are capable of elaborate deceptions makes you more careful about who you trust. Maybe discovering that love isn't always enough makes you work harder to be worthy of it. Or maybe I'm just trying to find meaning in something that was simply cruel and unnecessary and wrong. I'll probably never know which one is true. But I've learned to live with not knowing. I've learned to live with the possibility that the people who claim to love you might also be the ones who hurt you most. I've learned to live with the fact that sometimes the only choice you have is how you respond when your world implodes. My name is David. I'm 35 now. My wife had an affair with my sister's help, and I survived it. Barely. But I survived it. And sometimes on the good days, that feels like enough.